The gentle aroma of freshly brewed coffee with a hint of cinnamon wafted through Quinn Amara Harper's meticulously organized kitchen. Outside her window, Atlanta's skyline painted a perfect backdrop against the early morning sky. At 30, Quinn had mastered the art of routine, every moment of her day choreographed with precision that would make any fellow Virgo proud. She adjusted the collar of her cream silk blouse, smoothing out invisible wrinkles before reaching for her favorite mug, the third from the left, in a row of perfectly arranged containers, all organized by color gradients. The morning light caught the amethyst pendant around her neck, casting subtle purple shadows on her collarbones. The necklace, a gift from her grandmother, never left her neck, a constant reminder of protection and love. Another perfect morning, Quinn whispered to herself, taking a sip of her coffee while Ella Fitzgerald's smooth voice filled the apartment with "Dream a little dream of me." Her natural curls were styled into an elegant bun, not a single strand out of place. Everything in her world had its proper position, its designated time, its perfect order. The notification sound from her phone disrupted the peaceful morning symphony. Her mother's name flashed across the screen, unusual for this hour. Adrian Harper never called before their scheduled Sunday brunches unless something significant had happened. "Mom?" Quinn answered, her lower lip caught between her teeth, a nervous habit she never quite outgrew. "Quinn, darling, I need you in my office by 9. Her mother's voice carried that particular tone, the one that meant business decisions had been made, worlds were about to shift, and questions weren't welcome. Wear something appropriate for photos. The navy dress from Carolina Herrera would be perfect. Before Quinn could respond, the line went dead. She glanced at her perfectly planned schedule for the day, color-coded and organized in 15-minute increments. Her mother had just scattered that order like autumn leaves in a storm. The drive to Harper Financial's headquarters gave Quinn time to contemplate. As the company's head accountant, she knew every number, every projection, every fiscal plan. What could be so urgent that her mother needed her presence immediately? The last time Adrian had called like this, they'd acquired 3 smaller firms in one day. Quinn's heels clicked against the marble floor of the lobby, the sound echoing her heartbeat's rhythm. As she approached her mother's office on the 47th floor, she noticed unusual activity. Board members she rarely saw in person were gathered, their expressions a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation. "There she is!" Adrian Harper stood from behind her massive desk, elegant as always in a tailored white suit. "Quinn, darling, come in. We have wonderful news." The office was crowded with faces Quinn recognized from financial magazines and business journals. Her analytical mind immediately began calculating the net worth represented in the room. Easily billions. "The merger is final," Adrian announced, gesturing to an elegant older man Quinn didn't recognize. "Malcolm, shall we tell her?" Malcolm Ward. The name clicked in Quinn's mind. Ward Investments, New York. The merger her mother had been pursuing for months. But why did they need her here for this announcement? "Miss Harper," Malcolm's voice carried the weight of old money and power. "Your mother and I have been friends for decades, long before either of our companies reached their current success. Back then, we made a pact, one that would ensure our families' legacies would be forever intertwined." Quinn's stomach tightened. She recognized the look in her mother's eyes, the same one she wore when closing a particularly complex deal. "The merger isn't just about business," Adrian continued, reaching for Quinn's hand. "It's about family. You remember the old agreement I told you about years ago, the one about strengthening family bonds?" Quinn felt the world tilt slightly. Years ago, her mother had mentioned something about old family promises, but it had seemed like a distant fairy tale then. "Mother, what exactly are you saying?" "My son, Ashton." Malcolm produced a photo on his phone, a candid shot of a devastatingly handsome man with blonde waves and piercing blue-gray eyes. "He's 35, Harvard Business School, and currently running our West Coast operations. The agreement states that the heirs of both families would unite in marriage upon the merger." The word marriage echoed in Quinn's head like a bell in an empty church. Her carefully ordered world began to crack at the edges. "This isn't just about business," Adrian squeezed her hand. "This is about destiny, darling. The merger announcement goes public next week, and with it, your engagement to Ashton." Quinn stared at the photo again. Ashton Elias Ward looked exactly like the kind of man she'd spent her life avoiding. Too handsome, too rich, too perfect. The type who'd had everything handed to him, who'd never had to prove his worth. "Have you discussed this with him?" Quinn finally found her voice, surprised by its steadiness. Malcolm's slight hesitation told her everything. Ashton is being informed of the arrangement today in New York. He understands his responsibilities to the family. Responsibilities, arrangement, family legacy. The words swirled around Quinn like autumn leaves in a storm. She thought of her quiet apartment, her perfectly organized life, her choice to wait for true love. She thought of the romance novels hidden in her bottom drawer, the ones where love grew naturally, where hearts chose their own paths. "The contract will be ready for review tomorrow," Adrienne continued, already moving forward, as if Quinn's agreement was a foregone conclusion. "The wedding needs to happen within 3 months, before the fourth quarter earnings report." Quinn felt the weight of every eye in the room, the expectations of 2 dynasties pressing down on her shoulders. Her fingers found the amethyst pendant, seeking its familiar comfort. "I need time to think," she managed to say, her professional mask firmly in place despite the chaos in her mind. "Of course, darling," Adrienne smiled, but her eyes held steel. "You have until tomorrow morning. The press conference is scheduled for noon." As Quinn left the office, her perfectly ordered world had shifted on its axis. The hallway seemed longer, the elevator descent slower. In her car, she finally allowed herself to breathe, to feel, to think. She pulled out her phone, ignoring the calendar notifications that usually governed her day. Instead, she opened a browser and typed, "Ashton Elias Ward." The search results painted a picture that made her heart sink. Page 6 headlines screamed about his romantic entanglements with models and actresses. Society photographs showed him at exclusive parties, always with a different beautiful woman on his arm. Business articles praised his corporate victories, while hinting at his playboy reputation. In every photo, he wore the same confident smile, the kind that said he'd never heard the word no, never had to wait for anything he wanted, never had to prove himself worthy of love. Quinn started her car, her hands steady despite the tremors in her heart. As she drove home, Ella Fitzgerald's voice still played through her car's speakers, now singing "At Last." The irony wasn't lost on her. Back in her apartment, Quinn walked straight to her closet. The navy Carolina Herrera dress hung exactly where it should, in the blue section, between midnight and azure. Her mother was right. It would photograph well, tell the story they wanted to tell. But as she stood there, surrounded by her perfectly organized life, Quinn made a decision. If she had to enter this arrangement, it would be on her terms. She might not have a choice about the marriage, but she would have a choice about how she navigated it. She reached for her laptop and opened a new document. At the top, she typed, "Marriage Contract Terms and Conditions." Below it, she began to list her non-negotiables. If Ashton Elias Ward thought she would be another conquest, another accessory to his perfect life, he was about to learn differently. The sun set over Atlanta, painting the sky in shades of purple that matched Quinn's amethyst pendant. In her perfectly ordered kitchen, for the first time in years, a coffee mug sat out of place, a small act of rebellion against a world that had just turned her life upside down. Tomorrow she would meet the man who was supposed to be her destiny. Tonight, she would prepare for battle, armed with spreadsheets, contract clauses, and the quiet strength that had always been her true inheritance. In the background, Ella Fitzgerald began to sing, "What is this thing called love?" Quinn allowed herself a small smile at the universe's sense of timing. Indeed, what was this thing called love? And how did it fit into a life that had always been governed by numbers, order, and careful planning? The answer, she suspected, would change everything she thought she knew about both love and order. The Ward Investments building in Manhattan pierced the morning sky like a silver sword, its glass surfaces reflecting the sunrise in shades of amber and gold. Quinn stood in the lobby, her navy Carolina Herrera dress exactly as her mother had specified, her document folder clutched like a shield against her chest. The weight of her grandmother's amethyst pendant provided its usual comfort as she waited for the express elevator that would take her to the 60th floor. "Miss Harper," a sleek receptionist approached. "Mr. Ward is ready for you now." The conference room views stretched across Manhattan, but Quinn barely noticed the spectacular skyline. Her attention was fixed on the man standing at the window, his back to her. Ashton Elias Ward was taller than his photos suggested, his broad shoulders filling out his tailored grey suit with an ease that spoke of regular workouts and privilege. When he turned, Quinn felt the full force of those steel blue eyes. His photos hadn't captured their intensity, the way they seemed to strip away pretenses. She noticed his fingers moving to adjust his watch, a nervous tell she'd read about in her research. Quinn Amara Harper, he spoke first, his voice carrying notes of both amusement and curiosity. "You're not what I expected." She raised an eyebrow, maintaining her composure. "And what exactly did you expect, Mr. Ward? Please, call me Ashton." He gestured to the conference table. "And honestly, given our parents a flair for drama, I expected someone more conventional. Your contract demands are anything but." Quinn took her seat, arranging her documents with precision. "You've reviewed my terms thoroughly." He sat across from her, loosening his tie slightly. The scent of his cologne, Dior Sauvage, she recognized from her research, drifted across the table. No public displays of affection unless previously agreed upon. Separate bedrooms, individual financial autonomy, weekly scheduled submissions to respect each other's space. His lips curved into a half-smile. "Most interesting was your requirement for cooking privileges in the main kitchen and your insistence on maintaining your own coffee station. I take my morning routine seriously." "So I gathered." He leaned back, studying her. "What I don't understand is why you agreed to this arrangement at all. Your reputation at Harper Financial is impressive. You don't need this merger to secure your future." Quinn met his gaze steadily. "The same could be asked of you, Mr. Ward." "Ashton." "Ashton," she conceded. "Your dating history suggests you prefer your freedom. Entertainment Weekly called you Manhattan's most eligible bachelor just last month." A flash of something, irritation, respect, crossed his features. "You've done your homework." "I'm an accountant. Research is what I do." He stood suddenly, moving to a side table where a coffee service waited. "Speaking of coffee, black with a hint of cinnamon, correct?" At her surprised look, he shrugged. "I can do homework too." The coffee he handed her was perfectly prepared. Quinn took a sip, buying time to study him. Despite his playboy reputation, there was something guarded in his eyes, a careful distance that matched the reports she'd read about his sister's death. Emily, the name tattooed on his back, according to her research. "My terms?" she prompted, returning to business. "I have some of my own." He pulled out a folder. "Joint public appearances at key corporate events. A minimum 1-year commitment before any discussion of dissolution. And," his eyes met hers with unexpected intensity, "complete honesty between us. No games, no hidden agendas." Quinn bit her lower lip, a habit she immediately checked when she saw his gaze drop to her mouth. "Define complete honesty." "If this is going to work, we need to trust each other. The business world is full of sharks, Quinn. Our marriage needs to be the one place where we don't have to watch our backs." There was something compelling about his directness, a refreshing contrast to the corporate double-speak she was used to. "Agreed, but honesty goes both ways. If either of us finds this arrangement emotionally compromising, we discuss it immediately." A spark of interest lit his eyes. "Emotionally compromising? Are you worried about falling for me, Miss Harper?" "I'm worried about clarity, Mr. Ward. Romance complicates clean exits." He leaned forward, his presence suddenly filling her space. "And what makes you think either of us will want an exit?" Quinn forced herself to maintain eye contact, ignoring the way her pulse quickened. "Because this isn't a choice. It's a business arrangement." "Is that what you tell yourself?" His voice softened. "That love can be contained in contract clauses and schedule submissions. Love isn't part of this equation. Mathematics is your specialty, not mine." He stood, walking to the window. "But I've learned that the most interesting equations are the ones with variables we didn't account for." Quinn watched him, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers again went to his watch. Despite his easy charm, something about this arrangement unsettled him too. 3 months, she said. "That's how long we have until the wedding. I propose we use that time to establish clear boundaries and expectations." He turned back to her, and for a moment she glimpsed something vulnerable beneath his polished exterior. 3 months to turn a business arrangement into a convincing love story. That's ambitious, even for our families. We don't need to convince anyone of love. We just need to present a united front. And what about convincing ourselves? His question hung in the air between them. Before Quinn could respond, the conference room door opened. Their parents entered, followed by a team of lawyers. The intimate tension of the moment shattered like crystal. "Have you two reached an understanding?" Adrian Harper's smile held the same sharp edges as her business deals. Quinn looked at Ashton, finding him already watching her. In that moment, they shared a silent acknowledgement. Whatever this was between them, it was theirs to define, not their parents'. "We have terms to discuss," Ashton answered smoothly. but his eyes stayed on Quinn. Miss Harper has some excellent points about maintaining individual autonomy within the partnership. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of legal terms and negotiations. Quinn presented her requirements with professional detachment, while Ashton occasionally interjected with surprisingly thoughtful additions. By the end, they had a preliminary agreement that satisfied both their needs, on paper, at least. As the lawyers packed up their documents, Ashton caught Quinn's arm gently. "Have dinner with me tonight." She tensed slightly at the unexpected contact. "No, that's not in the schedule. Consider it our first exercise in honesty." His eyes held a challenge. No cameras, no parents, no expectations. Just two people getting to know the person they're supposed to spend their life with. Quinn thought of her color-coded calendar, the evening she'd planned to review the merger documents. "Where?" "My place. I'll cook." At her skeptical look, he smiled. A real smile this time, not his practiced charm. "Another fact from my homework. You appreciate good Southern cooking. Let me show you that not everything about me fits your assumptions." She should say no. It wasn't part of the plan, wasn't listed in their carefully negotiated terms, but something in his expression, a mixture of challenge and genuine interest, made her reconsider. "One condition," she said, "we talk about the real issues, not just what our parents want to hear." "Deal." He reached for his phone. "I'll send a car at 7. As Quinn left the building, her reflection caught in the glass doors. She looked exactly the same as when she'd entered, but something had shifted. In her perfectly ordered world, Ashton Ward had just introduced an unexpected variable. In her car, she pulled out her phone to adjust her evening schedule. For the first time in years, she left a time slot blank, undefined. Sometimes, she reminded herself, the most important calculations were the ones you couldn't plan for. The amethyst at her throat caught the afternoon light, casting tiny purple shadows on her dashboard. Her grandmother had always said the stone brought clarity in times of change. Tonight, Quinn suspected, she would need that clarity more than ever. The private elevator to Ashton's penthouse moved with silent efficiency, much like the black town car that had collected Quinn precisely at 7. She smoothed down her dark green silk dress, a deliberate choice that wasn't the Carolina Herrera her mother would have preferred. Her natural curls were loose tonight, falling past her shoulders in a subtle act of defiance against her usual controlled appearance. The elevator doors opened directly into his apartment, and Quinn's first thought was that it looked nothing like she'd imagined. Instead of the ultra-modern bachelor pad she'd expected, the space was warm, filled with rich woods and comfortable leather furniture. The walls held black and white photographs of cities around the world, and a record player sat in the corner, currently playing what she recognized as the Rolling Stones' Wild Horses. "You're early." Ashton's voice came from the kitchen, followed by the sizzle of something hitting a hot pan. He appeared in the doorway, and Quinn nearly dropped her clutch. Gone was the polished executive from their morning meeting. Instead, he wore dark jeans and a grey Henley with the sleeves pushed up, revealing strong forearms. His feet were bare against the hardwood floors, and his blonde waves were slightly disheveled. He looked real. "I'm never late," she managed, finding her voice. "And you're cooking. You sound surprised." He gestured for her to follow him into the kitchen. "Did your research not mention my culinary school stint in Paris?" Quinn blinked. So no, her research had missed that detail. She watched as he moved confidently around the kitchen, noting how different his energy was here compared to the conference room. "Wine." He held up a bottle of red. "It's a Bordeaux that pairs perfectly with what I'm making." "Which is?" His eyes sparkled with unexpected warmth. "Something that might remind you of home. Take off your shoes. Get comfortable. Kitchen rules. If you're here, you help." Before she could protest, he handed her a knife and pointed to some fresh herbs. "Chop these." "Fine, but not too fine." Quinn slipped off her heels, placing them neatly by the counter, and took the knife. The familiar action of chopping helped center her as she watched him work. He moved with the same grace he showed in boardrooms, but there was something more authentic about it here. "The culinary school story," she said, carefully cutting time. "Why isn't that in any of your press coverage?" Ashton added butter to a pan, the sound of it melting filling the comfortable silence. "Because it's one of the few things that was just for me. After Emily died, I needed space. Paris was far enough that no one knew me as Malcolm Ward's son or Emily's brother. I was just another student learning to make a proper roux." The mention of his sister hung in the air between them. Quinn kept her eyes on the herbs, giving him space to continue or change the subject. "Your turn." he said, surprising her. Tell me something that isn't in your perfectly organized file about me. Quinn bit her lip, considering. I stress bake. When quarterly reports are due, I make brownies at 3 in the morning. With or without nuts? Without. But I add extra vanilla and a pinch of espresso powder. He nodded approvingly. Next time you have a quarterly report, I expect samples. The easy domesticity of the moment struck Quinn suddenly. This wasn't how she'd expected the evening to go. She'd prepared for more contract negotiations, for polite but distant conversation. Instead, she was barefoot in his kitchen, discussing baking secrets. It's ready, Ashton announced, pulling 2 plates from a warming drawer. Living room. It's more comfortable than the dining room. The aroma hit Quinn as he set the plates down on the coffee table. Is that, shrimp and grits? With andouille sausage and a proper Charleston-style preparation. He looked almost nervous. Your background check mentioned Charleston connections. Quinn sat on the plush leather couch, tucking her feet under her before she could think better of it. My grandmother taught me to cook there every summer. She took a bite and couldn't hold back a small sound of appreciation. This is incredible. High praise from a southern girl. He settled beside her, leaving comfortable space between them. Tell me about your grandmother. As they ate, Quinn found herself sharing stories of summer days in her grandmother's kitchen, learning family recipes and life lessons in equal measure. Ashton listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he was truly engaged. The amethyst, he nodded toward her necklace. It was hers. Quinn's fingers found the familiar stone. She gave it to me before she passed, said it would protect me and help me see clearly when life got complicated. Is that what you're doing now, seeing clearly? The question carried weight beyond the casual dinner setting. Quinn set down her empty plate, turning to face him fully. I'm trying to, but you're not making it easy. Oh, his voice held a note of challenge. You're not what I expected, she admitted. The playboy from page 6 wouldn't cook southern comfort food or know about Charleston grits or what? Or look at me the way you do. Ashton's expression shifted, something unguarded crossing his features. And how do I look at you? Like you're trying to solve a puzzle, like you can't quite figure out why I'm not impressed by the usual things. He laughed softly. That's because you're not. Do you know how refreshing it is to meet someone who couldn't care less about the ward name or fortune, who actually seems annoyed by it? I'm not annoyed by it, Quinn corrected. I'm annoyed by the assumption that it should matter to me. See? That, he gestured with his wineglass. That right there. Most women I meet either want something from me or are trying to be what they think I want. You're just you. And who am I, according to your research? His eyes held hers. Someone who values order because it gives her control. Someone who's never been in love because she's waiting for something real, not convenient. Someone who's probably already counting the ways this evening has deviated from her scheduled expectations. Quinn felt her cheeks warm. You make me sound rigid. No, he shook his head. I make you sound careful. There's a difference. He stood, moving to the record player. The Rolling Stones faded out, replaced by the smooth notes of Ella Fitzgerald. Quinn's surprise must have shown on her face because he smiled. The more homework? Why are you trying so hard? She asked suddenly. This arrangement is happening whether we like each other or not. Ashton was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city lights. Maybe because for the first time in years, I'm interested in something that has nothing to do with business or obligations. You're a puzzle, Quinn Amara Harper, but not one I'm trying to solve. You're one I want to understand. The honesty in his voice made something shift in Quinn's chest. She stood, moving to join him at the window. Understanding goes both ways. Then understand this. He turned to face her. I agreed to this arrangement because it made business sense. But standing here with you now, watching you eat my cooking and talk about your grandmother, I'm starting to think the business part might be the least interesting thing about it. Quinn felt the weight of his words, the dangerous potential in them. We should stay focused on the contract terms. Should we? He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. Tell me something, Quinn. In all your careful planning and color-coded schedules, did you leave room for the possibility that this might become real? Before she could answer, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. The moment shattered as he checked the screen and frowned. I have to take this. It's the West Coast office. He stepped away, professional mask sliding back into place. I'm sorry. Quinn used the interruption to gather herself. She slipped her shoes back on, collected her clutch, and was nearly to the elevator when he caught up with her. Quinn, wait. He touched her arm gently. Thank you for coming tonight. She turned to face him. Thank you for dinner. It was unexpected. In a good way. A small smile curved her lips. I'll let you know once I've updated my spreadsheets. His answering laugh followed her into the elevator. As the doors closed, Quinn caught a final glimpse of him. Barefoot, relaxed, real. This, she realized, was the problem. Reality was messy. Reality didn't fit in color-coded boxes or contract clauses. In the car heading home, Quinn touched her grandmother's amethyst and whispered, "Help me see clearly." But as the city lights blurred past her window, she wasn't sure if she was asking for clarity to maintain her boundaries or the courage to let them fall. 2 weeks after their dinner, Quinn stood in her new office at Ward Investments' Atlanta headquarters, methodically organizing her desk supplies by color. The merger announcement had gone public yesterday, along with news of their engagement. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing with notifications since then. "Your coffee station has been set up exactly to your specifications." Ashton's voice came from the doorway. He leaned against the frame, looking unfairly handsome in a charcoal suit. "I even found that specific cinnamon you mentioned." Quinn glanced at the corner of her office where, indeed, a perfect replica of her home coffee station stood. "You remembered." "I remember everything you tell me." He entered the office, closing the door behind him. "Including your rule about maintaining professional distance at work." "Then why are you here?" His expression grew serious. "Well, because the board wants us to do an exclusive interview with Fortune magazine. They're calling it the Merger of Hearts." Their words, not mine. Quinn's hand instinctively went to her amethyst pendant. "That wasn't in our agreement." "I know." He moved closer, perching on the edge of her desk despite her slight frown at the disruption of her organized surface. "But after the announcement, the media attention has been intense. They're digging into our past relationships, or in your case, the lack thereof." Heat crept up Quinn's neck. Her choice to remain uninvolved romantically had become fodder for gossip columns. Some speculated she was secretly involved with someone else, while others painted her as cold and calculating. What exactly do they want to know? She kept her voice steady, professional. Everything. How we met, when we fell in love, why we kept it secret until now. He ran a hand through his hair. A gesture she'd learned meant he was genuinely frustrated. "They're particularly interested in your experience level." Quinn's fingers tightened around the pen she held. "My virginity is not up for public discussion." "I agree." His voice held a protective edge that surprised her, "which is why I wanted to discuss this with you first. We need to control the narrative before someone else does." Before Quinn could respond, her office phone buzzed. "Miss Harper, your mother is here." Adrienne Harper swept into the office moments later, impeccable in a white power suit. "Darling, have you seen the latest headlines? We need to address these rumors immediately." She paused, noting Ashton's presence. "Perfect. You're both here. The Fortune interview is scheduled for tomorrow morning." "Mother," Quinn started, but Adrienne held up a perfectly manicured hand. "This isn't negotiable, Quinn. The merger's success depends on public perception. Right now, people are questioning the authenticity of your relationship. We need to show them the fairy tale they want to see." Quinn felt the familiar tightening in her chest, the same feeling she got in elevators or dark spaces. The walls of her carefully constructed world were closing in. "Mrs. Harper," Ashton's voice cut through her rising panic, "Quinn and I need to discuss this privately first. We'll have our decision by this evening." Something in his tone made Adrienne pause. She looked between them, a calculating gleam in her eye. "Very well. But remember, darling, everything we've worked for depends on this appearing genuine." After she left, Quinn released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you." Ashton moved closer, his presence oddly comforting. "Are you okay? You look pale." "I don't like feeling trapped." The admission slipped out before she could stop it. Understanding flickered across his features. "The claustrophobia. It was in your medical records." Quinn almost smiled despite her anxiety. "More homework. I told you. I remember everything about you." He hesitated, then added softly, "including how you take 3 steps back from elevator doors and always sit near exits in restaurants." She looked at him sharply. Those weren't things in any record. They were details he'd noticed himself. The realization sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. "So we could do the interview my way," he suggested. "No fancy restaurant, no staged photos. They come to my place, where you're comfortable. We cook together. Show them the real dynamic between us." "There is no real dynamic between us," Quinn protested weakly. "This is an arrangement." Ashton stepped closer. his eyes intent on hers. "Is it? Because I've spent the last 2 weeks thinking about how you looked in my kitchen, barefoot and chopping herbs, how you smile when you talk about your grandmother, how you organize everything by color but left your hair wild that night." Quinn's breath caught. "Ashton, tell me something," he continued, voice low. "When you organize your life into perfect categories, where do you put the things you can't control? Where do you file away the feelings that don't fit into your spreadsheets?" Before she could answer, a knock at the door forced them apart. Her assistant entered with a stack of merger documents requiring immediate attention. "Think about the interview," Ashton said as he headed for the door. "Your way, my way, or we find a middle ground. But Quinn," he turned back to face her, "at some point, we need to address whatever this is between us." After he left, Quinn tried to focus on the documents, but her thoughts kept drifting. She thought about the coffee station he'd arranged for her, exactly as she liked it, about how he'd noticed her claustrophobia and created space for her without drawing attention to it, about how he looked at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to spend time solving. Her phone buzzed with a text from him. "Dinner tonight. I found your grandmother's mac and cheese recipe. Promise to follow it, exactly." Quinn stared at the message, her finger hovering over the reply button. This wasn't in their agreement. Dinner at his place and cooking together. It felt intimate, real, dangerous. Another text followed. "No pressure, no cameras, just us figuring out how to navigate tomorrow." She thought about her color-coded calendar, the empty spaces she'd been leaving lately, spaces where spontaneity might slip in, spaces where feelings that didn't fit into spreadsheets might take root. 7 p.m., she typed back, "but I'm supervising the mac and cheese. Grandmother would haunt me if we got it wrong." His response came immediately. "Looking forward to being supervised by you." Quinn set her phone down, trying to ignore the way her heart raced. She had meetings to attend, documents to review, a perfectly ordered life to maintain. But as she touched the amethyst at her throat, she wondered if her grandmother's stone was working too well, helping her see things she'd been trying to avoid. The afternoon sun cast shadows across her perfectly organized desk, and for the first time in her life, Quinn found herself wondering if some things were better left uncategorized, undefined, and beautifully, terrifyingly real. The Fortune magazine interview had gone better than expected. The article, published this morning, painted them as a modern power couple who found love amid corporate negotiations. Quinn stared at the photos, her and Ashton cooking in his kitchen, sharing quiet laughs, looking surprisingly natural together. Maybe because part of it hadn't been an act. Now, a week later, she sat in her office reviewing quarterly projections when her assistant burst in, looking flustered. "Ms. Harper, I think you should see this." A tabloid website blazed across her screen. Ward's secret rendezvous with supermodel X. Below were grainy photos of Ashton entering an upscale Manhattan restaurant, followed by images of him in what appeared to be an intense conversation with a stunning blonde woman. The timestamp showed last night, when he'd claimed to be in a late business meeting. Quinn's chest tightened, but her face remained impassive. The blonde was Sienna Rose Marlowe, international supermodel, actress, and Ashton's most famous ex-girlfriend. The article detailed their 3-year relationship, their dramatic public breakup, and speculated about a possible reconciliation. Her phone buzzed with Ashton's name. Quinn silenced it. "Cancel my remaining meetings," she told her assistant. "And if Mr. Ward comes by, I'm already here." Ashton stood in her doorway, his tie loosened, looking like he hadn't slept. "Quinn, we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you." Her voice was arctic, matching the cold that had settled in her chest. 5 minutes, please." The please caught her. In all their time together, he'd never begged. She nodded to her assistant, who closed the door behind her. "The photos aren't what they look like," he started. "Might they look like you lied to me?" Quinn kept her voice steady, professional. "We agreed on honesty, Ashton. It was your requirement, remember?" He ran a hand through his hair, disheveling the perfectly styled waves. "Sienna contacted me about investing in her new fashion line. It was supposed to be a business meeting. At midnight, in a private room." Quinn pulled up another photo, this one showing Sienna's hand on his arm, her body leaning intimately close. "Show us, is this how you conduct all your business meetings?" She orchestrated the whole thing, frustration edged his voice, called a restaurant she knew paparazzi staked out, made sure we were seen. "I should have known better, but you went anyway." Quinn stood, needing the physical distance. "You could have told me, should have told me. Instead, you lie." Because I knew how it would look. He stepped closer, but Quinn moved away. Quinn, please. What you and I have been building these past weeks. What we've been building? She laughed, the sound brittle. We're building a corporate merger wrapped in a convenient marriage. Don't confuse it with something real. Pain flashed across his features. Is that what you really think? After everything? Quinn touched her grandmother's amethyst, seeking strength. I think you're very good at making things appear real. The perfect dinner dates, the thoughtful gestures, the way you look at me like I'm special. Her voice cracked slightly. But it's all just another business deal, isn't it? You're wrong. His voice dropped. Intense. You think I arranged that coffee station because of business? That I learned to make your grandmother's recipes for show? That I notice every detail about you? How you bite your lip when you're nervous? How you touch that necklace when you need strength? Because it's good for the merger. I think you're excellent at your job. Quinn turned to the window, unable to face the emotion in his eyes. And your job is making this look real. A knock interrupted them. Quinn's assistant poked her head in. I'm sorry, but... She's here. Who's... Quinn started, but her question was answered as Sienna Rose Marlowe swept into the office. She was even more stunning in person. Tall, willowy, with perfectly styled blonde waves and emerald eyes that assessed Quinn with casual dismissal. So this is the little accountant. Her voice dripped honey-coated condescension. Ash, darling, you didn't tell me she was so quaint. Quinn felt rather than saw Ashton stiffen. Sienna, what are you doing here? Damage control, of course. Sienna perched on Quinn's desk, deliberately disrupting the organized surface. These awful photos are everywhere. We need to get ahead of the story. There is no story, Ashton said firmly. And you need to leave. Sienna laughed, the sound musical but sharp. No story, darling. There's always a story. Right now, it's about how Manhattan's most eligible bachelor is trapped in an arranged marriage while his heart belongs elsewhere. She turned to Quinn. No offense, sweetie, but you're not exactly his type. I mean, look at you, organizing pens by color. How precious. Quinn felt something snap inside her. Not in anger, but in clarity. She looked at Sienna, really looked at her, and saw beneath the perfect exterior to the desperation beneath. This woman had orchestrated an entire media circus just to get Ashton's attention. Ms. Marlowe, Quinn's voice was calm, controlled. You're right. I'm not his type. I don't play games or manipulate situations for attention. I don't need to orchestrate paparazzi photos or create artificial drama. She stepped closer, her quiet confidence filling the room. I simply am who I am. And right now, who I am is someone asking you to leave my office. Sienna's perfect smile faltered. You don't understand what Ashton and I had, Quinn finished. You're right. I don't understand your history, but I understand desperation when I see it, and it's not a good look on you. The silence that followed was deafening. Sienna stood, her composure cracking. Ash, are you going to let her? She asked you to leave. Ashton's voice was firm. Goodbye, Sienna. After she stormed out, the office fell into heavy silence. Quinn began reorganizing her desk, needing the familiar comfort of order. Quinn? Ashton started. Don't. She kept her eyes on her task. Just don't. Look at me, please. Something in his voice made her pause. When she met his gaze, the raw honesty there caught her off guard. I've spent years playing roles, he said quietly. The charming heir, the playboy executive, whatever people expected. But with you, for the first time, I don't know how to play it, because for the first time, I don't want to. Quinn felt tears threatening but held them back. I can't do this, Ashton. I can't wonder every time you're late or busy if there's another Sienna waiting in the wings. I can't. Then don't wonder. He crossed the space between them. Come with me. Tonight. No cameras, no business, no roles to play, just us. Where? There's something I want to show you. Something only Emily knew about. He touched her hand gently. If you still think this is all an act afterward, I'll respect that. We'll keep it strictly business until the merger is complete. Quinn looked at their hands, his fingers barely touching hers, offering rather than demanding. She thought about the past weeks, about lazy Sunday mornings cooking together, about the way he remembered every detail she shared, about how he made her feel seen in a way no one ever had. 7 o'clock, she found herself saying. Relief flooded his features. I'll pick you up myself. No drivers, no publicity, just us. After he left, Quinn sat at her desk, trying to process everything. Her phone buzzed with a text from him. Thank you for defending our privacy to Sienna. And Quinn, you're wrong about one thing. You're exactly my type. You're real. She touched her grandmother's amethyst, remembering her words about clarity in times of confusion. The stone felt warm against her skin, like it was trying to tell her something. Maybe sometimes clarity meant admitting that not everything could be organized, categorized, or controlled. Sometimes clarity meant taking a risk on something real, even if it terrified you. The address Ashton had given Quinn led to an unassuming brick building in a quiet part of Brooklyn. No doorman, no marble lobby, nothing like the luxury high-rises she'd expected. She double-checked the text message, wondering if there had been a mistake. "It's the right place." Ashton's voice came from behind her. He wore jeans and a black sweater, casual clothes that somehow made him look more real than his expensive suits ever did. This was Emily's building. Quinn's breath caught. She knew how rarely he mentioned his sister's name. "Why are we here?" Instead of answering, he led her to a freight elevator, his hand gentle on the small of her back. "Trust me." The elevator rattled up to the top floor. When the doors opened, Quinn found herself in an artist's loft. Huge windows filled one wall, letting in the last rays of sunset. Easels stood scattered around the space, covered in white sheets. The air smelled of paint and possibility. "Emily was an artist," Ashton said quietly, moving to uncover one of the easels. "This was her studio. After she died, I couldn't bear to change anything." Quinn moved closer, studying the revealed painting, an abstract piece in shades of blue and gold that seemed to capture both storm and sunlight. "It's beautiful." She was the creative one. His voice held old pain. "I was the responsible son following our father's path. Emily followed her heart." He uncovered another easel. This was her last unfinished piece. Before Quinn could respond, a sharp knock echoed through the space. Ashton frowned. "Nobody knows about this place except—" "Surprise! Surprise!" A sleek figure stepped from the elevator. "Hello, Ashton." "It's been a while." Quinn recognized her immediately from her research. Delilah Monroe Santiago, another of Ashton's exes, now a rising executive at a competing firm. She wore a perfectly tailored black suit, red stilettos clicking against the wooden floor as she approached. "Delilah." Ashton's voice had gone cold. "How did you find this place?" "Oh, darling." Her laugh was practiced, professional. "I never lost track of you. And now that you're engaged to the Harper heiress—" Her dark eyes swept over Quinn with calculated assessment. "Well, certain interested parties wanted to ensure everything was progressing appropriately." Quinn felt her spine stiffen. "Interested parties? Berkman Associates sends their regards." Delilah smiled, all white teeth and warning. "They're quite concerned about this merger, particularly some of the more creative accounting in the Harper books." Ashton stepped forward. "Get out. Not before I deliver my message." Delilah pulled out a USB drive. "Kias, these files show some interesting discrepancies in Harper Financial's recent acquisitions. Nothing illegal, of course, but enough to raise questions. Questions that could delay the merger indefinitely." Quinn's mind raced. She knew every number in those books. Yes, they'd used aggressive but legal accounting strategies, but nothing that wouldn't stand up to scrutiny. Unless the Singapore deal, she said suddenly, pieces clicking into place. "So you were involved in that negotiation." Delilah's smile widened. "Very good. The quiet accountant has teeth." She turned to Ashton. "She's sharper than your usual type. But then, this isn't about attraction, is it? It's about business." "You're wrong," Ashton said quietly, his eyes on Quinn. "About everything." "Am I?" Delilah moved closer to him, her perfume, expensive, citrus sharp, filling the space between them. "Remember Tokyo, darling? How we used to close deals? Some things don't change." Quinn watched them, feeling suddenly out of place among the covered paintings and old memories. This was Ashton's world. Beautiful, ambitious women who understood power plays and corporate warfare. Women who didn't organize their lives by color or wait for true love. "Actually," Quinn found her voice, "some things do change." She moved to stand beside Ashton. "Are those creative accounting strategies you're so concerned about? I designed them. Every number, every transaction, all legal, all documented. Go ahead, show them to the board. I'll enjoy explaining exactly how we outmaneuvered Berkman on that Singapore deal." Delilah's composure cracked slightly. "You don't understand what you're up against." "No." Quinn's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "You don't understand. I'm not just the quiet accountant. I'm the person who's been 3 steps ahead of your firm for the past year. Those discrepancies you found, Breadcrumbs I left specifically for corporate spies like you. Ashton looked at her with something like awe. Delilah's perfect smile had frozen. Now, Quinn continued, I believe my fiancé asked you to leave. Unless you'd like me to detail exactly how Berkman has been manipulating their Asian market numbers, I have some interesting spreadsheets of my own. After Delilah stormed out, silence fell in the studio. Quinn's hands were shaking slightly, but her voice had never wavered. Quinn, Ashton's voice was rough with emotion. That was, I'm good at my job. She turned away, needing space to breathe. It's what I do. See patterns, plan ahead, protect what matters. Look at me. His hand touched her shoulder gently. When she turned in, his eyes held a mixture of pride and something deeper. You never told me about the Singapore strategy. You never asked. She tried to smile. Everyone sees the quiet girl who organizes things by color. They don't look deeper. I do. He stepped closer. I see you, Quinn. All of you. The intensity of his gaze made her heart race. Ashton. When Delilah mentioned Tokyo, he said quietly, you didn't even flinch. Other women would have asked and would have been jealous, but you just handled it, protected the company, protected us. The merger, she corrected softly. I protected the merger. Is that what you were protecting? His hand moved to cup her cheek. Because when she came in here to Emily's space, you didn't look worried about the merger. You looked ready for war. Quinn's breath caught. He was right. Seeing Delilah here in this sacred space had sparked something fierce in her. Not jealousy over past relationships, but anger at the invasion of something precious. Emily would have liked you, he said suddenly. She always said I needed someone real, someone who would see past the ward name and fortune to the mess underneath. You're not a mess. Quinn found herself leaning into his touch. You're just, complicated. He laughed softly. Says the woman who color-codes her life, but just revealed herself as a corporate chess master. We all have our secrets. She looked around at the covered paintings. Thank you for sharing yours. Stay. The word seemed to surprise him as much as her. Not for the merger, not for show. Stay because I want to uncover every painting in this room and tell you about the sister who painted them. Stay because I want to hear about every brilliant strategy you've designed. Stay because... A loud knock interrupted them. They jumped apart as Malcolm Ward's voice boomed through the door. Ashton, son, we need to talk. The board called an emergency meeting. Quinn saw the moment Ashton's walls went back up, the professional mask sliding into place. But when he looked at her, his eyes still held that raw honesty. Tomorrow, he whispered. She nodded, already missing his touch. Tomorrow. As she left through the freight elevator, Quinn touched her grandmother's amethyst. The stone felt warm, like it approved of her actions tonight. Maybe clarity wasn't just about seeing the truth in others. Maybe it was about being brave enough to show your own truth too. In her car, her phone buzzed with a text from Ashton. You were magnificent tonight. And Quinn, I'm not done sharing secrets with you. She smiled, remembering the way he'd looked at her when she stood up to Delilah, like she was a revelation, like she was exactly what he'd been waiting for. Maybe some things didn't need to be organized or categorized. Maybe some things just needed to be felt, experienced, lived. Maybe some arrangements could become real if you were brave enough to let them. The emergency board meeting had stretched late into the night. Quinn sat in her office the next morning, reviewing the fallout. Berkman Associates had made their move, launching a hostile takeover attempt of a key Ward Investment subsidiary. The market was rattled, shares were dropping, and the merger timeline was in jeopardy. She hadn't seen Ashton since leaving Emily's studio. His texts had been brief, professional, as in meetings. Handling the situation. We'll update soon. Quinn touched her amethyst pendant, remembering the vulnerability in his eyes when he'd shown her Emily's paintings. Now, that moment felt like a dream disrupted by harsh reality. A soft knock drew her attention. Her assistant stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. Miss Harper, there's someone here to see you. She says she's Emily Ward's best friend. Quinn's heart skipped. Send her in. The woman who entered wasn't what Quinn expected. Instead of New York polish, she had an artist's casual grace. Paint stained her jeans, and her curly red hair was pulled into a messy bun. I'm Mia Callahan, she said, settling into the chair across from Quinn, and you're the woman who got to see Emily's studio. Quinn studied her carefully. How did you... Ashton called me last night. Mia's green eyes were kind but assessing. He's never shown anyone that space. Not even Sienna or Delilah, and God knows they tried to get in. Why are you here, Miss Callahan? Because Ash is drowning right now, and you need to understand why. She pulled out a small sketchbook. Emily drew this the week before she died. She never showed it to anyone except me. The sketch showed Ashton sleeping in what appeared to be a hospital chair, his features softened in exhaustion. The detail was extraordinary. The worry lines around his eyes, the protective way his hand reached toward the hospital bed even in sleep. He spent every night there during her treatments, Mia said softly, working on his laptop, making deals, running the company, but never leaving her side. Emily knew the cancer was winning, but she worried more about him than herself. Quinn's throat tightened. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to understand what happens next. Mia leaned forward. When things get hard, when he feels like he might lose someone else, Ashton retreats. He'll throw himself into work, handle everything perfectly on the surface. But inside, he's that boy in the hospital chair again, trying to fix something he can't control. As if on cue, Quinn's phone buzzed with a message from Malcolm Ward. Emergency strategy meeting, 2 p.m. All senior executives required. He's doing it already, isn't he? Mia asked. Pushing you away, keeping things professional. Quinn nodded, unable to speak. Here's what Emily would want you to know. Mia stood, smoothing her paint-stained jeans. And the night before she died, Ash finally broke down. Know what she told him. Love isn't safe, little brother, but it's the only thing worth the risk. After Mia left, Quinn sat in her perfectly organized office, feeling anything but ordered. The sketch of Ashton stayed in her mind. Young, vulnerable, desperately trying to save someone he loved. The day passed in a blur of meetings and crisis management. Quinn watched Ashton lead discussions, his corporate mask firmly in place, showing no sign of the man who'd shared his sister's sacred space. At 7 p.m., her phone buzzed. Still at office? Rain check on dinner. Quinn stared at the message, hearing Mia's words echo in her head. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her purse and headed to the executive floor. Ashton's office was dark except for his desk lamp. He sat surrounded by documents. His tie loosened, looking as exhausted as he had in Emily's sketch. No, Quinn said firmly. He looked up, startled. Quinn, what? No rain check, no retreat, no pushing me away because things got complicated. She moved to his desk, pushing aside papers to perch on its edge. I saw the sketch. Ashton. The color drained from his face. Mia came to see you. She showed me what you looked like when you were trying to save Emily. It's the same look you have now, trying to save the company, protect everyone, handle it all alone. Quinn, his voice was rough. The merger isn't why I'm here. She reached out, touching his cheek gently. I'm here because yesterday you showed me your sister's heart in that studio. Today, you're trying to pretend that moment never happened. I can't. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. I can't lose anything else. Anyone else? You're not losing me. The words came naturally, surprising them both. But you can't keep building walls every time things get hard. His eyes opened, vulnerable and afraid. The takeover attempt, if it succeeds, then we'll handle it. Together. She shifted closer. I'm the woman who outmaneuvered Delilah. Remember? The quiet accountant with hidden strategies. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Hidden everything, it seems, says the man with a secret art studio. She tried to stand, but his hand caught hers. Stay. This time, the word held different weight than in the studio. This wasn't about sharing secrets. It was about facing fears. On one condition, Quinn said softly, we order food, review the takeover documents together, and you tell me more about Emily. Not the sanitized version from press releases, for the real story. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, gratitude out, and something deeper. You really want to know. I want to know everything. She squeezed his hand. The mess underneath, remember? For a moment, he just looked at her, like he was seeing something new. Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a worn photo album. Emily took these, he said quietly. She called them her Evidence of Joy collection. This one's from the summer before college. Hours later, they sat surrounded by takeout containers and spread out documents. Quinn had moved to the office couch, her heels kicked off, while Ashton sat on the floor beside her, his suit jacket discarded. The photo album lay open between them. She would have loved this, he said suddenly. What? How you've completely disrupted my perfect office. Look, chopsticks on financial reports and your shoes under my desk. Coffee cups everywhere. His smile was soft, real. Emily always said my life was too neat, too controlled. Quinn thought about her own color-coded world. Sometimes, Control is how we cope. And sometimes, he reached up to touch her face, we need someone to show us how to let go. The moment stretched between them, full of possibility. Then Quinn's phone buzzed, her carefully set reminder for her evening routine. Ignore it, Ashton whispered. Quinn looked at him, really looked, at the way his walls had crumbled, showing the man beneath, at how he wasn't just Malcolm Ward's son or the corporate playboy, but someone's beloved brother, someone's secret keeper, someone's safe harbor. She silenced the phone. His smile lit the dim office. The perfectly scheduled Quinn Harper, ignoring her calendar. What would your color-coded planner say? Some things, she said softly, covering his hand with hers, are worth coloring outside the lines for. The morning headlines screamed crisis. Berkman Associates had increased their hostile takeover pressure, and rumors swirled about potential irregularities in Ward investments, Asian operations. Delilah's handiwork, no doubt. But it wasn't the corporate chaos that occupied Quinn's thoughts as she stood in Emily's studio at dawn. Ashton had given her a key the night before, quietly pressing it into her palm before they'd finally left his office. For when you need space to think, he'd said, Emily would want someone to use it. Now morning light filtered through the huge windows, catching dust motes that danced around the still-covered canvases. Quinn moved through the space slowly, touching each easel with reverence. She'd come seeking clarity, but found herself drawn to the evidence of another woman's dreams. I thought I'd find you here. She turned to find Ashton in the doorway, looking tired but somehow lighter than he had in days. He'd loosened his tie, and his blonde waves were tousled as if he'd been running his hands through them. So how did you know? Because it's where I come when everything gets too loud. He moved closer, his presence warming the space between them. The board wants an answer by noon. About the merger, about us, about everything. Quinn's hand found her amethyst pendant. So what are you going to tell them? Instead of answering, he uncovered one of Emily's paintings, a striking piece showing a woman standing at a crossroads, one path neat and ordered, the other wild and undefined. Emily painted this right after I took over the West Coast Division, he said quietly. She said it was a warning, that I was choosing the safe path because I was afraid of the unknown. Were you? Yes. His honesty caught her off guard. After she died, everything became about control. Perfect deals, perfect image, perfect relationships that never went deep enough to hurt when they ended. Quinn thought about her own carefully ordered world, her color-coded safety nets. I understand that. I know you do. He turned to face her fully. That's why this terrifies me. Her heart skipped. What does? This, us, the way you see through every wall I've built. How you organize everything by color but can throw corporate sharks off balance without blinking. How you make me want things I swore I'd never risk wanting again. Quinn's breath caught. Ashton, I love you. The words hung in the air between them, raw and real and terrifying. Not because of the merger, he continued, voice rough. Not because it's convenient or expected. I love you because you defend my sister's space like it's sacred. Because you see the mess underneath and stay anyway. Because you make me brave enough to choose the undefined path. Quinn felt tears threatening, but held them back. The board can wait. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. I need to know something first. That night we had dinner here, when Delilah interrupted us. What were you really protecting? You know what I was protecting. Tell me. His eyes held hers, demanding truth. No corporate strategies, no careful words, just truth. Quinn touched the amethyst at her throat, seeking strength. I was protecting you, she whispered. Not the merger, not the company. When she came into this space, your space, with her threats and games, I wanted to protect you. His hand covered hers where it held the pendant. Why? Because I love you too. The words broke free like a dam bursting. Because you remember how I take my coffee and notice when I'm afraid of small spaces. Because you showed me your sister's heart and trusted me with her memories. Because you make me want to color outside all my careful lines. The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable. His hands cradled her face like she was precious, while hers gripped his shirt, anchoring herself to this moment, this truth. When they finally parted, Quinn rested her forehead against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. What do we do now? Now, his laugh held joy and relief. Now we go to that board meeting and show them what real partnership looks like. Not their arranged merger, but us, the quiet accountant and the mess underneath, taking on the world together. They won't expect that. Good. He kissed her again, briefly but with promise. I'm tired of meeting expectations. Aren't you? Before she could answer, both their phones buzzed simultaneously. The board meeting had been moved up. Someone had leaked information about the takeover attempt to the press. "Ready to face them?" Ashton asked, offering his hand. Quinn looked at him, really looked, at the man who'd shown her his sister's sanctuary, who'd learned her grandmother's recipes, who'd given her a key to his most private space, at the man she loved, mess and all. She took his hand, together. As they left the studio, Quinn glanced back at Emily's painting of the crossroads. She understood now what Emily had seen, that sometimes the undefined path, the one that terrified you most, was exactly where you needed to go. Her grandmother's amethyst caught the morning light, throwing purple shadows across the studio floor. In that moment, Quinn felt both women's presence, Emily with her wild artist's heart, her grandmother with her quiet wisdom, both understanding that sometimes love meant letting go of control and choosing to fall. The elevator ride down was silent, but their joined hands spoke volumes. Whatever came next, hostile takeovers, media storms, family expectations, they would face it together, not as an arranged merger of corporations, but as two people who had found something real in the midst of something planned. Just before they reached the lobby, Ashton squeezed her hand. "Quinn, move in with me," she blinked. "What?" "Not because of the merger timeline or public appearances. Move in with me because I want to see how you organize our kitchen by color, because I want to learn every recipe your grandmother taught you, because I want to wake up to you drinking cinnamon coffee and reading financial reports in my shirt." Quinn felt warmth spread through her chest. "Our kitchen? Our everything." His eyes held certainty. No more separate lives, no more careful distances. Just us figuring it out together. The lobby doors opened to a crowd of reporters, their cameras flashing like lightning. Quinn looked at Ashton and saw her future. Messy, undefined, absolutely perfect. "Yes," she said, and watched joy break across his face like sunrise. Then they stepped into the chaos together, no longer acting a part, but simply being who they were. Two people who had found love in the last place they'd expected to look. Behind them, high above the city, Emily's studio held their secrets, their truths, their new beginning. And somewhere, Quinn was sure, both Emily and her grandmother were smiling. The Ward Investments boardroom crackled with tension. Quinn sat beside Ashton at the massive oak table, their shared strength evident in their matching postures and united front. Across from them, Malcolm Ward's face was thunderous as he reviewed the morning's headlines. "Berkman Associates claims they have proof of financial irregularities." He slapped the newspaper down. "Our stock has dropped 15%. And now my son wants to announce that this merger is about love rather than business." "It's about both?" Ashton's voice was firm. "And Quinn has a plan." All eyes turned to her. Quinn felt the weight of their stares. Old money, old power, old ways of thinking. She touched her amethyst pendant and stood. "3 months ago," she began, "when rumors of a possible hostile takeover first surfaced, I began implementing a strategy." She nodded to her assistant, who distributed folders to each board member. "If you'll open these, you'll see detailed documentation of every transaction Berkman Associates has made in the Asian markets over the past year." Delilah's perfectly composed face showed the first crack of concern as she opened her folder. "Ms. Monroe Santiago was kind enough to draw our attention to certain patterns," Quinn continued, allowing herself a small smile. What she didn't realize was that those patterns were deliberately created to expose exactly how Berkman has been manipulating market data. Murmurs rippled through the room as the board members reviewed the documents. Malcolm Ward's expression shifted from anger to calculating interest. "The irregularities they're claiming to have found in our books," Quinn clicked to the next slide of her presentation, "are actually a sophisticated trap. Every questionable transaction has a mirror component that, when exposed, will reveal Berkman's own market manipulation." Ashton stood beside her, their shoulders touching. "Quinn didn't just protect our interests. She created a strategy that will force Berkman to withdraw their takeover attempt or face federal investigation. And you knew about this?" Malcolm demanded of his son. "No." Ashton's smile was proud. "Because Quinn doesn't need anyone's permission or oversight to be brilliant at her job." Before Malcolm could respond, the boardroom door burst open. Adrian Harper strode in, elegant as ever, in cream silk. "The press is waiting downstairs," she announced. "They want a statement about the takeover attempt and—" She paused, eyeing Quinn and Ashton's united stance. "Other matters." Quinn felt Ashton's hand slip into hers, steady and sure. "Mother, save it." Adrian's face softened unexpectedly. "I saw you both entering Emily's studio this morning. I know that look, Quinn. It's the same one I had when I met your father." Surprise rippled through Quinn. Her mother rarely spoke of her father, who had died when Quinn was young. "The merger will proceed," Adrian continued, addressing the board, "but not because of any arrangement. My daughter has not only protected both companies, but has found something I once had and lost, real love in the world of corporate games." Delilah stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. The takeover will fail," Quinn cut in smoothly. "And you might want to clear your schedule for the SEC investigation that's about to begin. I've already submitted the documentation." The boardroom erupted in chaos. Malcolm Ward's booming laugh cut through the noise. "Well played, Miss Harper." He stood, straightening his tie. "Or should I say future Mrs. Ward, though somehow I suspect you'll keep your name professionally." "Actually," Ashton's voice held amusement, "we haven't discussed that yet. We've been a bit busy outsmarting corporate raiders and falling in love." Quinn felt warmth spread through her chest at his casual declaration. Around the table, she saw expressions ranging from shock to approval to calculation. "The press," Adrian reminded them. "They need a statement." Quinn looked at Ashton, seeing her own certainty reflected in his eyes. "Then let's give them one." The descent to the lobby felt different this time. Quinn's hand was firmly in Ashton's, her heart full of things that couldn't be contained in spreadsheets or color-coded files. Just before the elevator doors opened, he pulled her close, ready to go off script. She thought about her carefully planned life, about all the safe choices she'd made. Then she thought about Emily's painting of the crossroads, about her grandmother's wisdom about taking risks for love. "Sometimes," she whispered against his lips, "the best strategies are the ones you can't plan." The lobby was a storm of camera flashes and shouted questions. Quinn felt Ashton's arm slip around her waist, anchoring her. "Mr. Ward, is this merger just a corporate arrangement?" "Miss Harper, what about the takeover attempt? Are the rumors about financial irregularities true?" Ashton stepped forward, but it was Quinn who spoke first. "While the truth about Ward Investments and Harper Financial," her voice carried clear and strong. "Yes, our companies are merging. Yes, we've faced attempts to derail that merger. But the real story isn't about corporate strategy." She turned to look at Ashton, seeing everything she felt reflected in his eyes. "The real story is about two people who thought they were entering a business arrangement and found something else entirely, something real, something worth fighting for." Ashton's smile was radiant as he added, "The truth is I fell in love with the brilliant woman who color-codes her coffee cups and outsmarts corporate raiders before breakfast. The merger is just paperwork. Quinn is my future." The press exploded with questions, but Quinn barely heard them. In that moment, she saw their whole journey, from careful distance to shared secrets, from arranged convenience to chosen love. Her amethyst pendant caught the light, throwing purple shadows across Ashton's face as he leaned down to kiss her. The cameras went wild, capturing the moment that would grace tomorrow's business pages. But Quinn and Ashton were already lost in their own world, where love didn't follow business plans, and the best arrangements were the ones that fell beautifully, perfectly apart. Above them, in a quiet studio in Brooklyn, Emily's paintings stood witness to new beginnings. And somewhere, Quinn was certain, her grandmother was nodding in approval at her perfectly imperfect choice to color outside all her careful lines. 3 months after their public declaration, Quinn stood in Emily's studio, now transformed into a bright, living space. Some of the paintings had been hung on the walls, while others remained covered, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. She was organizing a series of Emily's sketches by date when the door opened. "I thought I'd find you here." Ashton's voice carried warmth and familiarity. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder, hiding from the wedding planners again. "Your mother and mine have opinions about everything." Quinn leaned back against him. "Did you know there are apparently 17 different shades of white for table linens?" He laughed softly. "Is that why our apartment looks like a rainbow exploded? All those color swatches everywhere. Don't pretend you don't love how I've organized them." She turned in his arms to face him. "Besides, you're the one who insisted we use Emily's studio for the reception, because she would have loved it." His eyes held that tender look that still made Quinn's heart skip. "Almost as much as she would have loved you." The merger had been finalized last week, smooth and successful, after Berkman Associates withdrew their takeover attempt. The SEC investigation into their practices had revealed exactly what Quinn's strategy had been designed to expose. Delilah had resigned quietly, disappearing to a consulting firm in London. But the real victory wasn't in the boardroom. It was here, in this space that had become their sanctuary. "I have something for you," Ashton said, producing a small wrapped package. "Early wedding present." Quinn unwrapped it carefully to find a leather-bound sketchbook. Opening it, she gasped. The pages were filled with Emily's drawings, candid sketches of Ashton throughout the years. "Mia found it last week," he explained softly. "Emily's personal collection. Look at the last page." Quinn turned to the final sketch and felt tears well up. It was dated just days before Emily died, a drawing of the studio space, but transformed. In Emily's vision, the space was full of life, love, and new beginnings. She had written at the bottom, "For whoever makes my brother brave enough to love again." "She knew," Quinn whispered, touching the words gently. "Somehow, she knew someone would come along. She knew I needed someone real." Ashton took the book and set it carefully aside. "Someone who would organize my chaos into color-coded perfection, but leave room for mess. Someone who could handle corporate raiders and family drama while still getting excited about coffee with the perfect hint of cinnamon." Quinn smiled through her tears. "Someone who would keep your sister's memory alive while helping you build new memories." "Exactly." He brushed a tear from her cheek. "Which is why I have another surprise. Remember that unfinished painting of hers?" He led her to an easel that still stood covered. When he pulled away the sheet, Quinn's breath caught. The unfinished piece had been completed, not by trying to mimic Emily's style, but by incorporating it into something new. "Mia helped us," he explained. "She said Emily always meant for this piece to be about continuation, not ending, about how love doesn't stop, it just transforms." The painting now showed a blend of Emily's bold strokes and new complementary elements, like their life together, honoring the past while building something uniquely their own. "It's perfect." Quinn touched the canvas reverently. "For the reception. For our home." He pulled her close. "Speaking of which, have you finished organizing our closet by color yet?" "Almost." She bit her lip, suddenly nervous. "But we might need to leave some space." "Oh?" "For tiny clothes." She took his hand, placing it on her still flat stomach. "In about 7 months." The joy that broke across Ashton's face was blinding. "Quinn, are you sure?" She nodded, tears falling freely now. "I took 3 tests, all positive, all perfectly aligned in my bathroom drawer." His laugh was watery as he pulled her into a kiss. When they parted, he pressed his forehead to hers. "Emily always said life's biggest blessings come unplanned. Like falling in love with your arranged marriage partner. Like finding my soulmate in a corporate merger." He kissed her again, soft and sweet. "Like building a family in my sister's sacred space." A knock at the door interrupted them. Mia poked her head in, grinning. "Sorry to break up the moment, but your mothers are downstairs with what looks like every wedding magazine in Manhattan." Quinn groaned, but Ashton just laughed. "Tell them we'll be right down. We're just finishing something important." After Mia left and he turned back to Quinn, ready to face the chaos, she touched her grandmother's amethyst, now accompanied by Emily's ring on her finger. "With you, always." As they headed downstairs to deal with wedding plans and future dreams, Quinn thought about how far they'd come, from a business arrangement to real love, from careful distance to complete trust, from 2 separate lives to one beautifully merged future. The studio above would always be their sanctuary, a place where Emily's spirit lived on, where their love had grown from arrangement to reality, and where their child would learn about the aunt who had helped guide their parents to each other. Later that night, as they lay in bed reviewing color swatches and nursery ideas, Quinn realized something. Her life was still organized, still catalogued with care, but now it held something more precious than perfect order. It held love, messy, unplanned, absolutely perfect love, and that was the greatest arrangement of all. 1 year later, sunlight streamed through the windows of Emily's studio, now a vibrant space filled with life and memories. Quinn sat in the window seat, 6-month-old Emma Grace cradled in her arms, while Ashton hung the last of Emily's newly framed sketches on the wall. "There." He stepped back, adjusting the frame slightly. "Perfect," Quinn smiled, recognizing his teasing reference to her need for precision. "Almost a little to the left," Emma gurgled, reaching for the amethyst pendant that still hung around Quinn's neck. The crystal caught the morning light, casting familiar purple shadows across her daughter's face. "She has Emily's smile," Mia observed from where she sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching mother and child, and Quinn's careful way of studying everything. It was true. Even at 6 months, Emma showed a fascinating blend of both families. Emily's artistic spirit evident in how she watched light and colors, Quinn's methodical nature showing in how she carefully arranged her toys by size. The studio had evolved with them. One wall now showcased Emily's art, while another displayed photographs of their journey, their wedding day right here in this space, Quinn's growing belly as their daughter developed, their first family photo with Emma. Below these hung Emma's first painting, tiny handprints in rainbow colors, perfectly framed. The merger quarterly reports are in, Quinn mentioned, gently rocking Emma. Both companies showed record growth. Ashton moved to join them on the window seat. And yet here you are, not color-coding the data sheets. Some things are more important than perfect organization. She leaned into him as Emma drifted to sleep. Though I did organize her nursery by color spectrum. Of course you did. His kiss was soft against her temple. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. The corporate world still turned below them. Deals were made. Stocks rose and fell. Mergers continued to shape the financial landscape. But up here, in their sanctuary, among Emily's art and their growing love, none of that seemed to matter. Quinn thought about the contract that had started it all, now framed ironically in their home office. Every careful clause and protection they'd insisted on, rendered meaningless by something as uncontrollable as love. "What are you thinking about?" Ashton asked softly, careful not to wake Emma. "About how some arrangements turn out better unplanned." She touched her pendant, then Emma's cheek. "About how the best things in life don't fit in spreadsheets." Mia looked up from her sketch. "Emily would love this, you know. Her space being used for love and family instead of just memories." Through the windows, the Manhattan skyline stretched endlessly, a testament to corporate power and carefully arranged deals. But here in the studio, surrounded by art and love and the soft breathing of their daughter, Quinn and Ashton had found something far more valuable, a life colored outside the lines of expectation, painted in shades of joy and trust and endless possibility. Their love story hadn't followed the careful script of their arranged merger. Instead, it had blazed its own path, proving that sometimes the most beautiful arrangements are the ones that fall perfectly, wonderfully apart, only to come together again in ways no contract could ever predict or contain. And in the quiet of their sanctuary, as Emma slept peacefully between them, Quinn and Ashton held on to this truth, that love, real love, needs no arrangement at all. It simply is, in all its messy, unplanned, perfectly imperfect glory. The end. Based on this profound journey of love between Quinn and Ashton, I want to ask you a reflective question. Which moment in the story touched your heart the most? When Ashton showed his vulnerability by sharing Emily's secret studio with Quinn, or when Quinn decided to break her own rules of control and organization to allow herself to truly love? This choice between two such significant moments reveals a lot about how we see love and the courage to open up to it. On the one hand, we have Ashton sharing his deepest pain and the memories of his sister. On the other, we have Quinn learning that not all love can be organized into spreadsheets and color codes. Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.